What's up, everybody? Hey, this is JK Knife Life, and this is my very first video. Just wanted to kind of give you guys a little idea of the direction for my channel, just how it's going to work, and just kind of introduce my rating system for knives. The intent really is to just review knives, just exercise a different aspect of this hobby that I love so much, and just kind of try to give you guys some insights into different knives that I've owned or currently own, and just some recommendations on different things that you guys may want to consider. So in this picture here, you can see some of my favorite knives. You have the Buck 110 up here on the left, the Shirogorov F3, the Spyderco Tough DLT here, my fiance's Benchmade Mini Bug Out. You have a Microtech Exoset here, the Reate Jack 2.0, my fiance's Swiss Army, this Benchmade 940 in carbon fiber, and then this Spyderco Manix, and then her Dragonfly down here, which actually I'm going to flip that over to show the design. So these are just some of my favorite knives, and I wanted to have these here just to kind of represent different lock styles, different brands, just different types of knives, opening mechanisms. And I'm going to kind of pick these up and play with those a little bit as I go through my ratings system. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started. So the first item I'm going to address with any knife review is blade steel. So I'm going to give each of these a score from 1 to 10, and then at the end there will be a total score out of 70. So for example, this Benchmade here has S90V, which you can see here on the blade, and that's a very good steel. But you know, if you're going to be using it for hard use duties, maybe a lot of toughness is required, like on a 3V or something. This Reate here is M390. This Tough here is Crewwear, which has a very high toughness, good for abuse situations. Not that you ever want to abuse your knives, but just a very high resistance to impact. And then the 110 up here is just the, I believe the 440 stainless on this guy, but the heat treat is very good on these, and they're known to be very reliable knives. So blade steel, just give it a ranking, 1 to 10. Maybe a 1 would be like an HCR 13 MOV, whereas a 10 would be an M390. The second criteria I'm going to evaluate is clip style. So you can see this Microtech here has a really wide clip. It's really intended to be more of a money clip. The Swiss Army doesn't have a clip, but like this Benchmade has a nice simple, just stamped clip. The Reate here, I believe, is machined. So I'm just going to evaluate the clip, evaluate how well it retains the knife in your pocket, if it's deep carry or not. And some of these ratings you may disagree with, that's okay. This is just my perspective, and it's just, the intention is just offer you a little bit of knowledge on different knife criteria that you may consider when you buy knives. The third one is lock type, which I'm not actually going to assign this a rating, but I will address it in my reviews. So for example, this Reate has a, I believe it's a liner lock. Yeah, it's a liner lock here. Whereas the Tough over here on the left has a frame lock. You can see that there. The Shirogorov is a liner lock. This Buck up here is a back lock, and then this Microtech, it locks with its internal mechanism. This one actually might have a different name, but I'm going to call it a liner lock for the purposes of this video. So I'll evaluate that. I'm not going to give it a rating, like I said. Lock type, it's all, you know, dependent on what you're looking for. I wouldn't necessarily say one lock type is better than another. I think it's more manufacturer dependent. But you know, you may not want to do a back lock here if you intend to use a knife in one-handed situations. So the fourth one is materials. So that would include blade and handle. So this Spyderco is Spy 27 steel, FRN handles. And again, there is some subjectivity here. Like, you may prefer a lighter handle, so you may want this plastic. But my rating is really going to skew towards like the high-end stuff. So like I would rate this carbon fiber higher than this aluminum, just because carbon fiber is more expensive. It's also lightweight. It's stronger than aluminum. So just consider that when I'm doing a rating on the materials. And then the blade, I'm going to consider this maybe the steel as well. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to work out some kinks with some of these categories, but the materials I'll probably focus mostly on the handle. and then the other aspects of the knife, backspacers, screws, etc. The fifth one is size. This is another one I'm not going to rate. So like this Microtech is pretty small. I mean, I have pretty big hands, but it's a pretty small knife. Whereas the Shirogorov is pretty large, even in the hand. I mean, it's a pretty good sized knife here. So, but size is very subjective. It's really what you're looking for in terms of carry size. You know, what do you want to carry? What's your preference? Does a heavy knife bother you? Does it not bother you? So I'm not going to give that one a rating, but I will use some reference knives to show you what size the knife is. I'll probably focus mostly on this Mannix and the Buck 110 in the corner there. A lot of people are familiar with those and they've seen those a lot. They've handled those. I may throw in this 940 as well because those are also popular knives. The sixth one is action. So this Reate, I would give a very high score on action. It's very smooth. Try to do this under the camera here. Very drop shutty. Just not gritty at all. Just a very smooth mechanical action. The Shirogorov has a very good action here. The Tough is very smooth as well. The Buck up here in the top left is a little grittier. This Benchmade here, sorry about that, I hit the camera. Also very smooth. So I'd probably give it a pretty high rating. You know, maybe a 10 would be like I don't know, like a Shirogorov with multi-row bearings or something like that. And then a 1 might be a very gritty, I don't know, cheap knife. I don't have an example, but like a gas station knife or something. The seventh one is hardware. So I really dislike proprietary hardware. I think all manufacturers should switch over to Torx, or even just like Emerson does on their knives, where they have just Phillips head screws. The stuff like Microtech uses, you can see it here, those little triangular head screws. I just don't like that. I don't agree with it, but I think it's just a way to get people to buy a specific tool or to discourage them from disassembling their knives, which 99% of the time I think is the wrong direction anyway. So I'm going to tend to favor Torx. Knives like this Buck 110 here, I'll just rate that whenever I evaluate it. I'm not sure where I'm going to go with that one, because a lot of the old style knives are pinned like that one. You cannot disassemble those. You know, is that a bad thing? Same with the Swiss Army. But is it a bad thing? I don't know. You know, maybe not necessarily if you can still clean it, still maintain it. So anyway, I'm going to rank hardware as best as I can. Again, I'm gonna say it one more time. Some subjectivity with all of these. So if you disagree, that's okay. You know, leave a comment below, and be happy to read those and just see what your point of view is. The eighth one is price, and I'm not going to rate a knife and say it's good if it's expensive or bad if it's cheap, or vice versa. I'm going to rate it off of value. So if I look at, like for example, this Dragonfly, these are about $100, but you get stainless steel handles, VG10 steel, which is getting a little outdated, but that doesn't change the fact that it's a very good steel. You know, nice sharp edge on this. One of the best factory edges I've ever encountered from any manufacturer. Normal Spyderco quality. I mean, you can see the gap between the bar there and the handle scales is very, very small. Nice tight lock, good clip. This one has good centering as well. So, you know, I'm just going to rate it off of how good of a value the knife is. Again, 1 to 10, 1 for bad value, 10 for good value. The ninth one is quality, so fit, finish, lockup, all of those things. Is there any blade play? Is there any lock rock? Stuff like that. Are there sharp edges on the scales? Just anything like that that would really stand out to someone who's discerning with knives, or not discerning. I mean, maybe it's somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience. They haven't looked at a lot of knives. You know, they're just getting into the hobby. Things that would stand out to them, especially not having as much experience, I think would be more egregious, just because they don't have as much experience in the hobby, and maybe their eye isn't quite as trained, which isn't a bad thing. Everybody starts somewhere, of course. So But the quality is very important on a knife. All the ones on the table here, in my opinion, have very, very good quality. Benchmade used to be known for having quality that was hit and miss. In my experience in the past year or so, their products have gotten significantly better. It's, in my opinion, from what I've seen, it's no longer the policy where you need to inspect them before you purchase them. All the ones that I purchased, is this 940 here, this 940 from Cabela's, the Cabela Special, and then this bailout. They've all been very good quality. Centering was perfect, no blade play, very good grinds, etc. So, and the 10th and last one is competition, which this one will also not have a score. So competition, size, and lock type I will not rate, because they're just too subjective, and it's just dependent on what you want, what your preference is, and it's just, it's just not, I'm not able to provide any valuable feedback on that besides just discussing what's out there. So in terms of competition, like for this Dragonfly, what other knives are at this price point, at this size? Maybe a Spyderco Chicago would be in the size range, a little cheaper than this, but those may be discontinued now, I'm not sure, but that's just an example. Or like these 940s up here, I'm sure there's a lot of competition out there for those. Carbon fiber handle, I know this lock style is no longer patented, so companies like Hogue are making knives with that lock style now. I don't know if they use any carbon fiber yet. I think theirs are primarily aluminum. But yeah, so yeah, what's out there in terms of competition? What are your other options to buy? Like Shirogorov, I might say, look at Holt, look at Koenig, or Koenig, I think it's Koenig. Excuse me if I mispronounced that. So just different options for you out there to consider. And then, as I mentioned, I'll give a score out of 70. And then that'll give you some guidance in terms of, like, if you're looking at this knife, if it's something you may want to consider, or if it's something you may want to pass on. And then, yeah, so that's kind of an overview of the system that I plan on using. There may be some kinks that I work out as I go along. Not sure which knife I'm going to start with, but I wanted to get this video out there to give everyone just a heads up and just give them some information on where I'm planning to go with the channel, what kind of content you can expect, and then I'm going to mix in some different stuff as well. I'm a professed Christian myself, so I might mix in some Bible verses with the reviews, just things like that. That just because my faith is extremely important to me, and I think it's important to get that message out there as well. So anyway, if that's not for you, feel free to skip. But anyway, I really hope you guys have a great day, and I'm gonna start working on my first review here, and yeah, we'll go from there. I look forward to reading any comments, and don't be too harsh. This is my first video. See you guys.